All right, hello everybody. Started our live stream for today. A little late. I had to actually figure out how to do this because I didn't think ahead about how I was going to do this, because this is how to write a notice, what a notice is, how to go about it, and so on and so forth. So I've figured out a way that I can do this, and I'm going to just reverse this camera so that it shows my computer screen, and I'm going to take you guys how to write a notice. So first off, let's just talk a little bit about notices, why they're important, and why it's a good idea that we know how to write them. Because once we understand that, we can serve notices on anybody at any time, privately, publicly, anything we want to do. They're very, very powerful. A notice is what is given in a legal sense, meaning that when we have a legal notice served on somebody else or on a corporation, then the whole legal system then is involved. So it can be produced in courts, whereas a letter cannot be. So a notice is like the step up from, like a letter or something like that. And then above a notice is something like an affidavit. So this is kind of, we're dealing with legal letters here when we write a notice. And once you get to know this, you start to notice that notices are everywhere. When you're out in public somewhere, public being, public jurisdiction, you'll see notices everywhere. There'll be signs saying, notice, don't ride your skateboard here. Or notice, don't let a dog go here. Or notice, if you park here. It's because you're being noticed. That is now a legal notice. So the reason that we do this is because when we need to put our point of view or our needs or, assert our rights, we need to notice people. And then we do that with a notice. I wonder how many times I've said notice so far already. So what I'm going to do is flick this camera around. If I can figure out how to do that. Here we go. Show you my screen. So hopefully this is somewhat big enough for you guys to see. Now, the first question is, how do we write a notice? What is the difference between a notice and a letter or anything else? Well, how we create a notice is we literally write notice. So you'll see here on this one, notice of conditional acceptance, it says here, how do I do this? It says there, notice of conditional acceptance. That's the type of notice that it is, but I've written notice. So that's all you need to do. To turn a letter or anything into a notice, you literally just write on it that it is a notice. Now this one is a notice of conditional acceptance. So what I was going to do is create one from scratch, but that was just going to be difficult to let you guys see how to do it because I'd have to do it handwritten or whatever. So I'm going to take you through a few different ones and show you exactly how you can create something for yourself. So first of all, up the top of this one, I have this written here. It says, time-sensitive document, estoppel conditions apply. I'll see if I can make that a little bigger so people can see. Right up the top, right here. Time-sensitive document, estoppel conditions apply. So what's an estoppel? Well, an estoppel just means essentially a binding agreement where you have offered for something to be put forth. It has not been rebutted. Therefore, whatever is put into this notice stands as truth. Because an estoppel then is essentially, an estoppel just means that it is agreed to. That's basically what the essential meaning is. Time-sensitive document just, reiterates the fact that there is only a limited time in which people have to reply or respond. If they don't, then, that's where the estoppel comes in. So what we have here is on the top right, we have us. Now we write this on the right-hand side because in commerce, a creditor puts everything on the right-hand side. A debtor puts everything on the left-hand side. So once again, when we're dealing with commerce, there are only two sides in commerce. There are debtors and there are creditors. So I'll just bring this down a bit smaller so you can see it. So when we are in commerce, we can only be one of those two things. A creditor asks questions and a debtor answers questions. That's basically the two ways that you can be. Now, the reason we put them on the right is simply because, as I said, in commerce, creditors write and sign on the right-hand side. Debtors write and sign on the left-hand side. So here's a notice top to bottom. Time-sensitive document, estoppel conditions apply. That sets the tone for what's going on. we have our name on the right hand side and our address. I use a PO box. I don't like giving out my home address because it varies a lot, but also just because I just rather these people in these organizations not knowing where I live. Now, after my name here, hang on, I'm just gonna make this a little bigger and just show you a couple of things. So when we write our name, just gonna move this a little. We write, here we go. After our name, we put in brackets, we, us, our. The reason that we do that is because when we refer to ourselves, we tend not to want to write I do this, I do that, whatever. We want to have it as we, us, or our, because it means essentially that we're referring to us and our estate or our legal fiction. It's not just, me, I, whatever, which is tends to just refer to one entity or one fiction usually. The same as when we put their name. So I'll show you how that looks. When we put their name, we put, I haven't put it on this one, but I put it on the next one. But here, I'll put it in now. We put in brackets here. We put you. Oh, we should put there we put you and then your. And then bracket that. That way, in the notice, when we refer to these people, we say you do this, your thing, you're this, you that. And it just refers collectively to them, especially also if they are tied to a corporate entity such as, a council, police, or government, with vaccines or what have you. So that's how we start the notice, is that we have us on the right and we refer to ourselves as we, us, or our. So that in the notice, anytime we use the words we, us, or our, it's the same as writing your name. And same with them. We put their name, you, and your. Now, above that, I put the date. The date can go almost anywhere. It just has to be before you start the actual, the body of the notice. So the date up the top, very important, because you need to, in future notices, refer to notice one sent to you on 15th November 2020, 2019, whatever that was, So you've got to have a date there. Now, what's this? Office found. I don't put this on every notice, but this one I did. The reason I put office found is that when you send off a notice to a company, for example, it might not go to the right department or the right individual straight away. But if you put office found at the top, that is the legal way of it. It just means that it has to go to the right department. Office found means that if you're sending it to something that should go to the accounts department or the legal department or whatever department, even if you haven't explicitly specified, the nature of the notice will show that it needs to go to the right department. Therefore, it is their responsibility to put it to the person that it has to go to. For example, if that went to court or something later and somebody says, it didn't go to the right department, it was supposed to go to the legal department, and you hadn't addressed it to the legal department, if you put office found, it is then their responsibility for it to go to the right department. So then they cannot turn around and say, well, it didn't come, you didn't address it right. Okay? So that's why we put office found. It doesn't have to go on every notice. I put it up the top underneath the two names. That's not a hard and fast rule, that's just where I put it. Now this next section, which looks like you can see it from my screen. This is what we put when we are addressing corporations, government bodies, things like that. It says, within the universal maxim of law, notice to agent is notice to principal, and notice to principal is notice to agent. The reason we put that is because let's say you're dealing with some snotty person on the phone who's one of those people that does not want to give you customer service. This means that they are representing the whole corporation. You ring somebody from the tax department, the police department, anybody, that one individual who thinks that they're just, there's no liability to them, you speaking to them and you noticing them means that you have noticed the entire company. Likewise, when you notice the entire company, this snotty agent on a phone who thinks that they can talk down to you or whatever, they are as personally liable as the whole company. So that's why I suggest that you put this universal maxim of law, notice to agent, notice to principal. Notice to principal is notice to agent. After that, it says all addressed parties jointly and severally, as well as their successors, nominees, and assigns, which essentially is just a follow-on from what we've just written. It means that everybody is liable. So even their beneficiaries, even anybody at all, which just means that people can't pass the buck. It can't land on someone's desk and then they just pass the buck. It cannot happen because if they don't respond or reply, they think it's cool to throw it in the bin. Well, then their whole company goes down because of them, and they'll be held personally liable if it's found that they were the ones that chucked it in the bin. Now, what comes next is when we title what we're actually sending. This one is a notice of conditional acceptance. This next one here, this is a notice of fault. So a notice is essentially what you're naming it. This next one is a notice of intention to sue. So you can have literally any notice, just needs to be, you just need to say what it is. It's that I want to sue you, or I'll conditionally accept what you're offering, or you're at fault for this, or you need to move something, or it might be your brother or your sister. It's like, this is notice that you have smelly feet. You have 10 days to wash your feet so they don't smell and stink out the whole house. If you don't do that, then you have to get out of the house. Like, that's a notice, right? It's whatever you want to notice somebody for. So you get to name that. Notice of conditional acceptance is one of the most common that you will ever use. After that, after the notice, we usually put what it's about. So these were for infringement notices that were put on a friend's car. So we name the infringement notices. On one of the others, it would be regarding, what's this one? Yeah, well, that's reference to. This one is regarding a false arrest. So after the notice, what it is, we put what it's regarding, and then, whatever it is that it's regarding. Then we address the party named in the top left here. So this was the lady who is somebody in council. I got her full name. Sometimes you just can't get their name for whatever reason. So therefore you just say the director of fines department, whatever, of Brisbane City Council or wherever it's from. It's best to be able to name people personally because then you can hold them personally liable. If not, though, that's what this universal maxim of law is about. All addressed parties jointly, severally, as well as their successors, nominees, and assigns. That makes them personally liable anyway. But like I say, best to name them if you can. So then I name them here, dear, such and such. Now, what we do is we just raise our concern, whatever it is. This was with regards to parking fines put on my friend's car. So what happens here is, I'll just read this through to you. It says, we have considered the issues raised in your letter that appear to raise a number of controversies dated such and such, which is when they sent it to me or to my friend. And what I did is I put in a statutory declaration saying that I was the one driving the car so that I could get them and myself out of the fines. And it just says, we'll conditionally accept to pay an alleged debt to the City Council upon proof of claim of the following. So proof of claim just means they've made a claim against us and they're saying that you owe us money, right? So what we're then saying is, well, that's fine. We're not arguing. We're not doing anything. We're just conditionally accepting. So we say, that's fine. We'll happily pay. We'll happily pay any debt to you if it's real. So in order to find out that it's real, we need proof of claim. You're making a claim against us. Now we need proof of claim. So here I've listed 1, 2, 6. Okay, so this is what we do. This is what we want proof of claim of. I've said 1, that the car I was using is a vehicle as claimed. A vehicle, the way they write it, that's a statutory term. So we refer to in the private world our car as an automobile or even a car, something that's not a statutory term. Number 2, that I am a person is claimed because in the letter that they send, it says any person parking here, blah, blah, blah. Hopefully by now, anyone that's watching this knows that a man or a woman is not a person. A person is a statutory term. It is a fictional entity, and a person doesn't have rights. They have benefits and privileges. A man or a woman has inherent rights. So I said, you need to provide proof of claim that I am a person and that my name appears in Section 102, Part 6, which is what they quote as their source of authority, of the Transport Operations Act 1995 or anywhere in that act. Because acts say that any person doing this, any person doing that, or everybody that does such and such. So you just have to say, well, am I everybody? Am I a person? Where's my name in that? Where does my name appear in your act? Which I'm going to get to another part about acts shortly. Here we go. Part 3 is that the City of Brisbane Act 2010, which is another act that they cited in the letter to me, has royal assent at a proclamation date, because no act after 1971 has royal assent. That means the Queen or her assigns, which I think is the Attorney or the Governor General, they have to have signed it, and they haven't. So that makes the act invalid, essentially. So apparently my computer has viruses, which I don't actually believe. I think it's one of those things that... Anyway, so you can provide a certified copy of the original document with these details, as well as your source of authority to issue fines. They can't provide that. Number 4, you need to provide proof of claim that I was using a driver's license at the time of the alleged offence. If you are not carrying a license or operating under a license, you do not come under their statutory terms. They can't prove that. Number 5, a copy of the contract that states that I waived my rights and that I agreed to your terms and conditions. And number 6, a copy of the contract between Tom Barnett, the All Caps, and Brisbane City Council, where I agreed to pay a sum of $300. Now, the reason that this is split into 5 and 6 is because if I tied that into one point and they refute only part of the point, then it refutes the whole point. So when you're listing anything in a notice of conditional acceptance or on an affidavit, do not combine points that should be separate, because if they rebut one, they rebut all. Okay, if they're combined in the same point. If they are done separately like this, then they have to rebut them all separately. Now, after you've listed your conditional acceptance points that they need to provide proof of claim of, you can stipulate what that reply actually needs to be. So here, this is my long version. It says only a reply that meets the following criteria qualifies as a proper and verified reply. Now, for it to be verified, it must be supported by an affidavit with their full legible name, title, wedding signature, and address for service, signed and sworn or affirmed by any claimant as being true, correct, complete, certain, and not intended to mislead, and under the claimant's full commercial liability and penalty for perjury. So in English, that just means that if they lie, if they don't provide an affidavit, then they are not providing the truth. And if they do provide an affidavit and they lie, then they will be fined for a lot of money and or go to jail. Number 2, incorrectly addressed mail may be returned and unopened, unread, without dishonor. That just means that if it doesn't go to where you stipulated, it doesn't count, and it can only be sent by registered mail to ensure a record of delivery. Without that, if they don't send by registered mail, there's no proof you ever received any reply or any mail from them in the first place. So that's why you send by registered mail as well. That's your proof of sending and proof that they received it. Then you can stipulate other terms, which I always do. I say we don't consent or authorize to be contacted by phone, mail, email, text message, personal visit, or by any method other than registered mail. This way, if they try to call you to try to entrap you into, being a name or going to contracting with them in any way, this means that they have already been noticed that they can't do it that way. And if they do that, it doesn't count. Any claimant must answer each of the above paragraphs 1 to 6 point by point in the notice. Now what happens is we stipulate what happens if they don't do this. If no reply in the correct manner as outlined above is received by close of business on whatever date. The date is usually from your first notice. It's usually 21 days from the date of your notice. You usually give them 21 days. Now, it's a little bit of entrapment, and this is why it's entrapment. It is because if they don't respond within 72 hours, 72 hours is the cutoff time within commerce. You're really actually only giving them 72 hours. But just to sound honourable, or to be honourable actually, more to the point, you are giving them 21 days. Now, if they respond longer than 72 hours, but still within 21 days, technically they are still in default, but you can kind of give them some leeway. That's up to you. But anyway, that's why we give them 21 days usually for the first notice. Second notice, when you give a reminder notice, you can drop that to 14 days. Third notice, final notice, you can make it down to 7 days, because generally they're not going to respond. Anyway, if they don't respond in the correct reply, as you stated, then it is taken as their assent and agreement. Assent meaning their unconscious decision to agree that 1, the matter is finalized, and 2, it's acknowledged that you will discontinue all further communication to us. Then I've given other things because this was my friend's car, so I made sure that they were going to be liable if they tried to go after her still. And then here is, in this note, I've said here, it's well understood that no one can be required to work or use their time or resources without exchange. That's a maxim of law that a workman is worthy of his hire. So that means that if you're required to do any kind of work, such as answering a phone, answering mail, sending anything off, going to the post office, whatever, that is work. You are doing work, and a workman is worthy of his hire. So if they are going to continue to pursue you, then your time is worth money. So if you have to engage them, they are liable for fees. That's why we provide for them a service fee invoice. So in any case, if they start doing anything other than what you have stipulated, you can name your price. $350 an hour is what I name. A lot of people use that figure. Some people put $1,000 an hour. You can put anything you like. So here you don't have to put this in. I've just put there's no statute of limitation on the time to collect any and all such fees. So that means that I can just charge them interest of 11% per annum. Now, here I've written, thank you for your time and assistance offered in this matter. Now, that can be something completely different, such as, what have I put on this one? This is something that people will put without malice, vexation, argument, or merriment. That just means that a notice is given simply by, it is simply given out of honor to finalize any commercial agreement. So you're not sending somebody an intention to sue and you're standing there laughing at them, or you're saying that you have the opposite of what you're written here. So you're basically taking pleasure in suing them, or to say that you're going to take legal action against them. That's dishonorable. Okay, it's like if you have to defend yourself in the street, if you have to put somebody on their bum or knock them over or choke them out or whatever, then that's fine. But if you then go and lay the boot in afterwards and kick them when they're down, that's dishonorable. It's the same principle here. So we just say that we are doing this without vexation, without merriment. It's not that we're doing it because we want to harm them. It's just that, hey, this is how commerce works, and we're reserving our rights. Now here, this is how we reserve our rights when we sign. Many different ways you can do this. This one says, secured party creditor, no assured value, no liability. Errors and omissions accepted. That means that if you've somehow made an error in your notice or you've left something out, then it's accepted. All rights reserved. Without recourse and non-assumpsit, that just means that no assumptions can be made. What I usually don't go to that degree here. This one's got another one signed that way, but usually what I do is I just sign simply here, all rights reserved, none waived ever. That's basically how I sign off. Then I'll put end notice. Why do I put end notice? Well, sneaky people might try to put something else in after. See, there's a lot of blank page here, right? You print that out, that's a lot of blank page. So I write end notice. If I've had to enclose anything, I'll enclose. Like if I've written in here, this piece of evidence enclosed, I'll state it here, enclosures, the previous notice of conditional acceptance. Or does this one have enclosures, the letter that they sent me, and a statutory declaration. So that's if you need to enclose anything. So that's essentially the layout of how to fill out a notice. So once again, the reason when we get down the bottom here that we sign on the right-hand side is because we are a creditor. We are a creditor in commerce. We sign on the right. Do not ever sign on the left, to the point that if somebody sends you a notice that requires you to sign on the left, I send it back and I say, with all due respect, I cannot sign as a debtor, and I feel that you're trying to entrap me. Please, resend with my name on the right, and I'll be happy to sign. Or what I do is I edit the document myself and I sign it back, signed on the right-hand side. There's no reason you can't do that. I'm going to give you a bit of a tip here. There is no part of this notice that says it is non-negotiable. There is no part of a notice that you'll receive that says that it's non-negotiable. The only part of this notice, this particular one, which I don't put on every notice, is that I've written non-negotiable autograph. That's only in reference. I haven't had dinner yet. I'm actually real hungry. To my autograph itself. But the notice isn't. And I've used this against people. I've sent this, I've gone to people in a private meeting and I've said, is there anywhere in the notice that you received, like, did you not receive a notice, is how I'll start. And they'll say, hang on, I'll flick this around. So I'll say to them, did you not receive a notice, right? And then they'll say, well, yeah, we received the notice. And I'll say, well, is there anywhere on that notice that says it's non-negotiable? Because they say, well, we didn't want to pay that amount, or we don't believe in whatever. And I say, well, that's fine, but is there anywhere that says it's non-negotiable? And they have to say no, because there's nowhere on there that I've said it's non-negotiable. Same with the notices that they send you. When somebody sends you a notice and it doesn't meet what you think is fair, you can cross stuff out. Before you sign anything, you can cross things out. You can change things around. You can make counter offers. You can do whatever you like. There's no rule that says that you can't do that. So I highly recommend that you do that if you don't like anything that's sent to you. What else? So that's basically it though. So go through that and, create your own documents. It's very difficult to get it wrong. I've seen people send in notices that are technically almost 80% wrong and they're still being effective, simply because they've signed it, they've addressed it to the correct party, and they've written notice. And then that's it, right? All the rest of this stuff, yes, it's important, especially as you start going up the chain of, needing to get to people that are higher up, for example. You do need to get a bit more accurate with it. But if you write it like this is going to get you through a lot of doors. So there you go. That's how to write a notice. That's how and why we do things. That's why we put things in certain orders, why we put things on certain sides of a notice, and then how to actually make it a notice in the first place. And like I say, the more you get familiar with this, the more you'll start to see and understand what people are doing when they send you a notice, for example, or you're out in the street and you see notices everywhere. Those are legal notices. So now you can start to understand how and why they're put in place. So I'll be doing another live stream probably tomorrow. I'm going to handle some more kind of health related stuff. And then I think Friday or Saturday, I'll be doing a Q&A. So stay tuned on Facebook, because I'll put a post up for that. If you want your question answered, it's got to go into the comments on that particular post. I can't keep going between lots of different things to pull questions from different places. So keep an eye out for that. Hope that's helped, guys. And I'll catch you on the next one.